Well, hello there, kids. Welcome back to the St. Joseph's Corner channel and the Catechism for Kids series. Back with me again, Joseph, your host. Today, we're going to talk about St. Cloud. But before we do that, don't forget to like and subscribe so you never miss an episode of Catechism for Kids. St. Cloud was born in 522 AD. He was the grandson of Clovis, founder of the Kingdom of the Franks, and his wife St. Clodoald. Following the death of his parents, Cloud and his two brothers were cared for by their grandmother, St. Clodoald, the widowed queen. Upon his father's death, Cloud's uncles sought to seize his father's throne by plotting the murder of Cloud and his two brothers. They succeeded in killing his brothers, but St. Cloud escaped and sought sanctuary with St. Remigius, the Bishop of Reims, located a short distance from Paris. And so, Cloud grew from childhood into young manhood under the guidance and protection of the holy bishop and his sainted grandmother. Little is known of Cloud's life from the age of 5 until 18. He lived most of those years with the Bishop of Reims, and the latter years with Saint Severin, a hermit. During these formative years, he drew closer to God through silence and solitude. Although this lifestyle was forced upon him by his uncle's plot to murder him, Cloud grew to appreciate his separation from the world and a life of silence. At the age of 20, St. Cloud left his hermitage, appeared before the Bishop of Paris, surrounded by religious and civic leaders and members of the royal family. His royal family. Remember, Cloud was a prince and heir to the throne. He clothed himself in royal robes and carried a scissors in one hand and a coarse garment in the other. He offered the coarse garment to the bishop, who clothed him with it as a symbol of his preferred spiritual rather than material riches. With the scissors, the bishop cut Cloud's long hair, which was a symbol of his royalty. In the silence and solitude of his hermitage, Cloud had established priorities in his life. I had learned the difference between true and false pleasures. After Saint Severin the hermit died, Cloud left the neighborhood of Paris to find solitude deeper in the forest. He sought silence to communicate with God more intimately. As he prayed for the needs of people, God answered his prayers in a strange sort of way by sending people out to find him in the forest. They came by the hundreds because they learned that Cloud had the gift of healing the bodies and souls of the afflicted. His was a ministry of healing and reconciliation. Cloud lived 11 years as a hermit. During those years, he spent time poring over the scriptures. These were not idle years for the prince, who had fled the royal court for a life devoted to Christ. For this reason, artists throughout the centuries have portrayed Cloud holding a Bible, though Cloud shared many gifts with others. There was one gift he could not share: the Eucharist, the body and blood of Christ. People recognized this, and many urged Eusebius, Bishop of Paris, to ordain the hermit prince a priest. The bishop complied, and in 551 AD, Cloud was ordained a priest for the Church of Paris. He became pastor of a small village consisting of poor men and women who fished in the river, and farm families in a small village near Paris. Today, the village, now a suburb of Paris, is called St. Cloud. In the village, St. Cloud used his gifts of healing, counseling, preaching, and celebrating the Eucharist in ministry to the people. As time passed, the uncles of St. Cloud repented of their sin and reconciled themselves with their nephew. They, in turn, restored many castles, estates, and lands to Cloud. As a hermit, he sold some of these properties and distributed his wealth to the poor. He received permission from the Bishop Eusebius to use a small portion of that wealth to build a church with his own hands, and he dedicated it to St. Martin of Tours. Cloud radiated that deep joy of a Christian heart in love with God. Others recognized this in Cloud and came to live near him. In time, he became a leader and teacher of those who joined him. They formed a religious community, not like a convent or monastery, but an association of persons dedicating themselves to love of God and service to God's people. The last 7 years of his life, St. Cloud lived in this community, attached to the Church of St. Martin of Tours. Surrounded by the community, he died serenely on September 7, 560 AD. At age 38, on September 12, 1891, after Bishop Otto Zardetti consulted with the priests, religious and lay people of our newly created diocese, Pope Leo XIII named St. Cloud the patron saint of the Church of St. Cloud, Minnesota. St. Cloud is also the patron saint of the St. Cloud Hospital. In May 1922, Joseph F. Bush, Bishop of the Diocese of St. Cloud, was present in St. Cloud, France. For the 14th centenary of the birth of St. Cloud, the patron saint of the city, at or around that time, Bishop Bush ordered a statue of the saint to be carved by the French artist M. Termu. It was to reside at the new St. Cloud Hospital in St. Cloud, Minnesota. The statue of St. Cloud arrived in Minnesota in October 1927 and was placed over the altar in the St. Cloud Hospital Chapel. A painting of St. Cloud now hangs in the entryway of the Diocese of St. Cloud's Chancery in St. Cloud, Minnesota. Another statue of the patron saint sits in the bishop's office in the Chancery. As you can see, St. Cloud didn't let his wealth or his status stop him from pursuing holiness. And that is an important lesson for us today. No matter who we are or what we have, we can't ignore God's call if He is calling us to something greater. Like maybe God is calling you to be a great scientist, or an amazing artist, or a brave firefighter. Maybe He's calling you to be a loving husband, or a caring mother, or a loyal friend. Whatever it is, we can't ignore God's call or let anything stand in the way of our holiness. So let's remember St. Cloud, who chose poverty over riches, who chose prayer over parties, and who chose God over everything else. Let's pray that God gives us the strength and courage to follow His call, no matter what it may be. And let's thank God for the gift of the Catholic faith and the saints who have passed it down to us through their example and their sacrifice. Well, that's it for this episode of Catechism for Kids. Remember to like and subscribe so you never miss an episode. See you next time, and God bless you.